Welcome to Celestial Zodiac. Today we're breaking down Saturn Retrograde by zodiac sign. How this powerful and often misunderstood retrograde shows up differently depending on where Saturn is traveling through the zodiac. Saturn rules structure, discipline, responsibility, boundaries, authority, long-term commitments, and consequences. It governs the rules we live by, the standards we hold ourselves to, and the systems we build over time. Saturn is the part of us that understands reality. Not fantasy, not impulse, but what is sustainable. When Saturn retrogrades, that external pressure doesn't disappear. It turns inward. Accountability becomes internal. Authority shifts from outside to inside. And the structures we've built are quietly reviewed. Saturn is not emotional like Venus or reactive like Mars. It is steady, patient, and slow-moving. It represents maturity, integrity, and the long arc of time. When Saturn is balanced, discipline feels purposeful and boundaries feel protective. When it's distorted or overextended, discipline turns into fear, rigidity, or self-criticism. On a practical level, Saturn governs career foundations, long-term goals, responsibilities, contracts, authority figures, and personal limitations. It reveals where we feel pressure, and whether that pressure is self-imposed or externally inherited. Ultimately, Saturn shows what we're building, and whether it can last. During a Saturn retrograde, those themes turn inward. This isn't about adding new responsibilities. It's about reviewing the ones already in place. When Saturn retrogrades, external pressure often eases slightly. Authority figures may step back. Deadlines may feel less urgent. But internally, the pressure increases. Self-criticism intensifies. Standards become louder. Old commitments and unfinished responsibilities resurface. Saturn retrograde exposes where we've been operating under borrowed rules. Expectations inherited from family, culture, authority, or fear. It asks whether the structures in your life are aligned with your integrity or simply maintained out of habit. This is not chaotic like Mercury retrograde. It is heavy, reflective, and structural. Ambitions may feel stalled. Long-term plans may require revision. Responsibilities that once felt manageable may feel restrictive. Saturn retrograde doesn't remove structure. It audits it. It is a maturity check. Where Jupiter retrograde refines belief, Saturn retrograde refines responsibility. Where Mars retrograde recalibrates action, Saturn retrograde recalibrates discipline. This cycle can feel serious, even sobering. But its purpose is long-term stability rather than punishment. When Saturn stations direct again, structures solidify, but only if they've been rebuilt on truth. You may ask, when does Saturn retrograde hit hard? Saturn retrograde is more noticeable when it directly activates your chart. It tends to feel strongest when it conjuncts your Sun, Moon, Ascendant, or personal planets. You will feel it more if you are in a Saturn return cycle. Other noticeable patterns show up when it activates your career axis or public life, and if you're avoiding accountability or resisting necessary responsibility. If long-term commitments are out of alignment with your integrity, you may feel a Saturn retrograde more. If none of those are happening, Saturn retrograde may feel subtle, similar to background maintenance. But when it hits, it restructures identity, ambition, and long-term direction. The sign Saturn retrogrades in determines how that internal pressure is expressed psychologically. This isn't about houses or external events. It's about internal standards, internal authority, and how you experience discipline. Saturn retrograde asks us to redefine responsibility, not by adding more weight but by removing what no longer aligns. With Saturn retrograde in Aries, Responsibility presses against identity. Confidence may feel tested, especially around leadership or independence. The life theme examined is self-authority. The lesson is learning that strength is built through patience, not force. Saturn retrograde in Taurus reviews stability and material security. Financial structures and value systems come under scrutiny. The life theme examined is sustainability. The lesson is understanding that real security requires disciplined adaptability. Saturn retrograde in Gemini tightens mental structure. Communication patterns, learning habits, and decision-making processes are reviewed. The life theme examined is intellectual responsibility. The lesson is choosing depth over scattered information. Saturn retrograde in Cancer intensifies emotional accountability. Family dynamics, boundaries, and protective instincts are reassessed. The life theme examined is emotional maturity. The lesson is learning that boundaries protect, not isolate. Saturn retrograde in Leo tests creative authority and recognition. Visibility may feel delayed, forcing a reassessment of authentic self-expression. The life theme examined is self-respect. The lesson is building confidence from substance, not applause. Saturn retrograde in Virgo refines discipline and daily systems. Work habits, health routines, and productivity structures are audited. The life theme examined is functional responsibility. The lesson is replacing perfectionism with sustainable systems. Saturn retrograde in Libra evaluates fairness and long-term partnership commitments. Imbalances become difficult to ignore. The life theme examined is relational accountability. The lesson is learning that harmony requires boundaries. Saturn retrograde in Scorpio intensifies power dynamics and emotional control. Shared resources and trust structures are reviewed. The life theme examined is emotional integrity. The lesson is releasing control to build lasting stability. Saturn retrograde in Sagittarius questions long-term vision and philosophical structure. Beliefs are tested against reality. The life theme examined is wisdom. The lesson is grounding optimism in disciplined action. Saturn retrograde in Capricorn is especially powerful. Ambition, authority, and leadership structures undergo deep revision. The life theme examined is legacy. The lesson is understanding that success without integrity cannot sustain itself. Saturn retrograde in Aquarius restructures independence within collective systems. Group involvement and long-term social commitments are reassessed. The life theme examined is responsibility to the future. The lesson is balancing individuality with contribution. Saturn retrograde in Pisces tests spiritual boundaries and emotional containment. Escapism and avoidance become unsustainable. The life theme examined is discipline within compassion. The lesson is grounding sensitivity with structure. Across all signs, Saturn retrograde reveals one shared truth. Structure without integrity eventually collapses. This retrograde isn't about fear, it's about alignment. Working with Saturn retrograde means slowing down long enough to examine your responsibilities, strengthen your boundaries, and build systems that support your long-term future. When Saturn stations direct again, stability returns, but this time with stronger foundations and clearer authority. Thank you for watching Celestial Zodiac. If this Saturn retrograde insight resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share for more astrology content that helps you understand these cycles on a deeper level. Until next time, build with intention.